Hello, guys, and welcome back to Mindset of a Day Trader. I know it's been a while, it's been such a long time since I've been able to be here with you guys and do an episode, but I've gotten so much support lately here at my X page. So you guys can follow me here at Risky Trader on X. This is where I'm going to be most active. I'm also on TikTok as well, guys, so if you guys want to follow me, Risky Trader on TikTok. And I want to say hello to everybody watching on YouTube. I'm also on YouTube for those listening on the podcast. The podcast is Mindset of a Day Trader. There it goes. I am your host, Risky Trader. And you guys can pretty much find me wherever you guys get your podcast. I'm here on Apple Podcast page, as you guys can see. Most of my listeners, I believe, come from Apple Podcasts. I do have a logo here that says Anchor. Anchor used to be where I used to make the podcast. Now I'm using Spotify, so you can ignore that. But I'm pretty much anywhere where podcasts, you can get your podcasts, you will be able to find me. Mindset of a Day Trader. Just Google Mindset of a Day Trader, and certainly a page will pop up with my podcast on there. So thank you guys so much. Appreciate that and appreciate all the support. And let's get started here. Season 4, Episode 4. From Traders to Gamblers. The real reason you're not consistent. As always, and I have to, be honest here before we start. Although you can see a disclaimer there at the bottom. This channel is not a substitute for professional financial advice. You guys are watching on YouTube, listening to the podcast. There's risk associated with trading. Day trading is risky. Funny enough, I am Risky Trader. That's the reason why that's the reason why I chose that name, Risky Trader. I wanted to be a little bit funny. Everybody's a risky trader if you think about it. Everybody risks money in order to make money. Only trade with money you can afford to lose. Past performance is not indicative of future results. My results are not typical. Sometimes I make money, sometimes I lose money. I don't know if that could sound typical to you, but my results are not. Most traders lose money, and that's the reality of it. 90% failure rate, which we're going to talk about on this channel and in this podcast. I'm not a financial advisor. I am not a financial analyst. I am not an economist. I'm not a tax professional. I'm not an accountant. I am not a psychologist. I'm not a trading psychologist. So we'll talk a lot about all these things here. It's all just for entertainment purposes. And nothing shared here should be construed as a recommendation to buy or sell any securities. Always do your own research, okay, guys? That's just the end of it. So I want to go ahead and get started here. So let's get started here, guys. From Traders to Gamblers. The real reason you're not consistent. Season 4, Episode 4. Why people call it gambling. I believe, first and foremost, trading is something that I've been doing for a long time. And when I started, there wasn't that many YouTube channels about it. TikTok didn't exist. And, nobody was talking about trading. I think once The Wolf of Wall Street came out, more and more people started getting into it, but it was still not that much. Once COVID hit, it seemed like everybody was a trader. Especially they started giving out those checks, and everybody seemed to all of a sudden now be a day trader. The thing is that they never showed any real respect for what investing and day trading and just being a market participant in the stock market is. And because they didn't do that, they just went in there blindly, thinking that they could just push buttons. And for a while, actually, that worked for them. But when it didn't, they were quick to call it gambling. That was one of the first major problems that I noticed. They were quick to call it gambling. But in reality, they went in there not keeping track of their trades, with no plan, no rules, no edge, just gambling by default if you really think about it. If it didn't work after a few trades, they blamed the market, not themselves. And they're playing roulette. You know, if you don't know your odds, you're not trading. You're playing roulette. And that's exactly what they were doing. The thrill replaced the logic. They were chasing the feeling, not a setup. Dopamine kicked in. And it kicked in more on hope than on execution. And they became addicted to the action and not the results. And that was the real big problem here. And not only that, they did not give themselves enough time to snap out of these things that we as traders right away get into. A lot of people blow accounts when they first start. It's part of the process. And certainly after they learn and they become better and they realize risk management is everything, and then they finally use stop loss or whatever, or they just implement better risk management, and all of a sudden they become more profitable. We'll talk a little bit about that in this episode. The reality is nobody wants to admit how boring real consistency is. Sticking to one strategy feels slow or too safe. They'll go from one strategy to another every other day or even every other week, never giving anything a true test. And then really just ultimately ignoring the fact that consistency comes before profits. In order to be consistent, you need to be disciplined. 90% of people that have failed trading that did it in one capacity or another, they just didn't give themselves enough time to really be able to identify the things they needed to do in order to be consistent, and they didn't do anything to be a disciplined trader. So that's why they call it gambling. But I want to talk about the people that didn't give up, the people that just didn't call it gambling, for the people that really believe in trading. They believe that this could be it for them, and they know that it is. They see other people win, but they're still not winning. And the reason why is you're just not consistent enough, and you're not disciplined enough to follow one strategy long enough to be consistent. Journaling. What kind of trade setups work for you? How often do they work for you? What is your risk management in those strategies? You want to have at least 20 trades of one strategy. I think even more, maybe even up to 100. But definitely you want to have a lot. You want to have a lot. And if you don't want to lose any money while you're testing this out, then that's why people always recommend for people to trade in the simulator before they risk real money. Because they want you to develop this discipline of staying consistent, following one strategy long enough for you to be able to really know, does this work or does it not? So they give up during the phase where they really should be figuring these things out. They're not back testing. They're not journaling. They skip the boring parts that build an edge. And look, the reality is no strategy is perfect. They all have drawdowns. But people treat every loss like a failed system instead of just a loss. Every system has a loss. They come in here with unrealistic expectations. They expect to make rent money after a week of trading. They do this also with no mentorship, no education, just looking at Reddit posts and X, and really just going with a gut feeling. But the first red day or few red days or a red week, they're out and saying this isn't for me, it's gambling. Or they just go and switch to another strategy. And then again, they look at another video and then they switch to that strategy. When things are not working out, they'll see another video and they'll switch to that strategy. When things are not working out, they'll see an X post and they'll follow whatever strategy the X post says. And then they'll lose then, and then they'll switch to another strategy, and they'll look at something one time, and they're scrolling on Facebook, and a video pops up about a trader, and for certain they're using a certain strategy, and now they're going to use that strategy, and it doesn't work out for them, and they switch out to another strategy, and so on and so on. What a true trader does is they define their setup, they track their performance, they stick through it through the drawdowns. They expect to lose sometimes, but they stay with the plan. True winners aren't the smartest, they're just the most consistent over time. It's not the market, it's your discipline. You're not losing because it's hard, you're losing because you never gave it a real chance. The reality is the market doesn't owe you any success. You have to earn it with consistency and with discipline. I believe this all stems from society, from our environment, from everything we've been known and to see. I mean, you look at fast food replace taking time and cooking in the kitchen, and you see streaming replace going to Blockbuster and with a family member and picking out a movie to watch. Like, speed was everything. People wanted speed. You didn't have to go outside because Facebook made it so that you could just connect with somebody real fast, and you didn't have to go outside or get ready or do anything. TikTok replaced YouTube because people want to be able to scroll and see a few second video and go on to the next thing. Attention span has gone down. AI has made it easy for people to do anything real easy, and people just want easy things, and it doesn't work out, they want to move on to something else. You have been programmed by society in a sense to be wanting things fast. So when you come to to be a day trader, you're thinking that you can go ahead and do this, but the reality is nobody's going to be a brain surgeon or a heart surgeon overnight. And the thing is that nobody's going to go ahead and be a mechanic overnight. And even if you see a YouTube video, by the time you go in there, you realize, how did they get the bolts out so easily? Because that person, before they recorded the video, made sure the bolts were loose enough so that it looked like they were struggling too much on the video. Like, all these things can happen. I'm not saying that all of them do it, but it's very possible. You see people all the time. We already talked about the chat room facades. We already talked about all these people on X. Most of them you can't really even trust or believe. They're trying to sell you a course. They're trying to sell you something. Heck, even I was thinking of doing that, charging for alerts. I've decided to scrap that altogether. I'm here just giving the information out for free. I'm just doing it for free. But, everybody gets caught in and caught up on all these things that are part of society, and the reality is trading is a lot of psychological, because the way you were brought up, what is your current situation? Do you really need money? Are you just doing this as a side hustle? You've got an amazing job, you're not struggling, like all these things. How much money do you have to start? Like, all these things really determine how somebody can become successful or not, and how long they take. Most people take a while. From what I can really see from most of the traders, if they were being honest, it takes about like 2 to 3 years. You gotta probably blow a few accounts. On average, I think I've seen people blow anywhere between 40 to 150,000 before they start making money. But it takes at least 2 or 3 years of solid consistency, spending most of the day trying to learn before people actually finally get it. So anybody that's just trying to come in here and try to become profitable overnight, I'm not saying it doesn't happen. I'm not saying you cannot do that, but you probably have only a 10% chance that will happen. More 90%, then you will fail. Most people fail 90% of the time. That's why you cannot disrespect this industry. That's why you cannot disrespect day trading, because it has a 90% failure rate. It's not like it has 100% or 90% success rate that anybody thinks they could just come in overnight and just do it. You have to be somewhat intelligent about it all. So I suggest, stick to a strategy, start journaling down what it is that you are doing, how much do you make, what is your risk management. Write down what is your average. Like every single time when you're writing down, when you enter your trade, if you were ever down, let's say you were down 5%, and you realize that every single time if you're ever down, it's usually 5%, then you know that you can put, a little bit like a 6% stop loss. You know that already. Because you've been back testing, you've been journaling. If you know that most of the time your strategy only gives you like 10% or 15% win, then you're not trying to hold on for 20, 30, 40, 50%. That could happen at any moment. But most of the time, if you do that, you're not going to get your 15% average. Because you're holding on for like 30, it goes to 15, and then it drops. It drops to where you lose, or even break even, where you could have just took in the 15. So this is why you develop a strategy. Any given time, especially if you're trading small caps, at any given time, a ticker can run 100, 200, 300%, and you want to be able to get those. You need those. But by you chasing those, you're going to end up losing in the long run. You want to just be able to get money off the table. You want to be able to follow your strategy. And if you lose 5, 6, 7 days in a row, you want to stick to it. You want to stick to it, okay? If you lose 20 or more, maybe you want to then finally decide if the market conditions have changed, and you may just need, maybe after you lose 5 or 6, 7, maybe you start to scale down your position size each and every single day until you start getting some winners. But do whatever it takes to just stick to it for at least 20 days, as long as possible, because then you can really start to see, okay, market conditions have changed. I know I dropped my position size throughout all these days, but I'm still losing. I feel like the market conditions have changed, so now it's time for me to see if another strategy can do better. And then maybe you want to go in there with a very small size, and then who knows, maybe with a new strategy you actually finally start to win and build some sort of consistency. You can go ahead and increase your size a little bit more each and every day, and just take it from there. I don't actually only have one strategy. I have quite a few strategies. I have like 2 or 3 very good ones that I believe are very good, and at any given market condition, I may have to use a different one. And for me, that's usually okay. So, is day trading gambling? Yeah, it can be. It definitely can be. If you're right here just doing absolutely nothing that you're supposed to do to be a disciplined trader, to be a consistent trader, you are gambling. You are gambling. You're a gambler. You need help. You need to call the hotline and stop risking your money. But if you want to learn, you want to do the right things, you listen to Mindset of a Day Trader, you follow me on X, you read other books from Mark Douglas, Disciplined Trader, like all these other books, and you're really trying, and you're doing everything possible to be disciplined, to be consistent, and you take it like real serious, and you treat it like a profession. Now you're day trading. Now you are a day trader. Now you are a real trader. You're not a gambler. Because as always, whenever you catch yourself feeling the stress, feeling the burden of a blown account, you want to go ahead put a new account, and do the exact same thing. That is just the mindset of a day trader.